Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Stephen Sommers' The Mummy Returns in 2001. So, another Mummy film review, once again. It's probably the fourth one that I reviewed on my channel. Yeah, of course, the other day I reviewed the 2017 one, and if you've seen that review, you know, I did not like that film, that was a bad film, it really was, and of course most people do say that, it's not great. But yes, The Mummy Returns, I reviewed, of course, the Stephen Sommers' original 1999 one. I love that film. It's actually on my favourite films list, 500. And yes, The Mummy Returns is the sequel, once again written and directed by Stephen Sommers. Brendan Fraser and all that, they're in it. John Hannah. And yeah, this one is not loved. I will say it. I did love both of these as a kid, and I didn't quite know what to expect once when I revisited this, because it is quite panned, a lot more so than even the first Mummy, and yeah, I loved them both as a kid, and to be honest, overall I do think I still did prefer as a kid the 1999 one, but there was one point I did put when I first saw it the first few times when I saw The Mummy Returns. I actually preferred that, and then but mainly after that I went back to The Mummy, and in recent years since, really, I've always thought The Mummy was was my favourite, and this one is quite panned, and yes, basically this one, Imhotep is back quite early on, and Akinnuoye-Agbaje is basically, it's believed that she's reincarnated in this woman in the modern day, and basically, yeah, she tries to bring Imhotep back, his powers back, and then of course at the same time, kind of introduced in the prologue, you've got the Scorpion King and his army, kind of stuff going on with him at the same time, and basically the soul is in this to do this bracelet of Anubis, which basically very early on, the kid of Alex, their son, Evelyn and Rick's son, basically it gets locked on his hand, the bracelet, and they have 7 days to kind of get him to this temple and everything, and rescue him basically, and then as well people are captured and all that kind of stuff, and there's rescue missions and all that, and basically stopping as well at the same time Imhotep. So there's quite a few things going on this time, but Imhotep is back, and Akinnuoye-Agbaje, she's actually played by, of course, Patricia Velasquez. She is back, and she's actually got a big role in this film. So yeah, you've got that going on, and you've also got Adewale coming back as well, who's a great character. And basically, you've got all these things happening at big scope, probably a bigger scope than the first. And then you've got these battles as well at the end of the film, and the fight with the Scorpion King. So this one, as I say, is panned, and most people do hate it. They say the CGI is terrible, which I can understand. I think there is flaws in the CGI for sure. I'm not going to defend the Scorpion King. The way he looks, of course, The Rock, in his debut kind of film role. Yeah, he's not. The CGI is bad. It just looks like a very, very poor kind of video game. And when you've got that, and you've got kind of intercut with different shots of normal people in the film, obviously it never looks great when the CGI is like this, and there's not interesting ways to kind of conceal that made by the filmmaker, and attempts really at that, and it is kind of just there for you to see in all its glory, and it's not great. But I'm not gonna, there's a couple of films that I do love, and I've given full marks to, even though there's a couple of shots here and there where CGI isn't great, and I'm not giving full marks to this film. I'll say that now, but let's only docks a few marks off really from my score, because it does crop up a lot throughout the film. Some moments of CGI that isn't great, and it kind of just takes away from the believability of the film, and it's it is kind of it's stuff that you have to floor really. But yes, this film, I think the first Mummy in 1999 is one of the most underrated films of all time. I love it. I think it's actually a great film. I like this even more. There we go, I said it. And I'm watching it now. Most of the time, as I say, as a kid, I did prefer the first. I think, you know, it's just kind of the locations, the kind of yeah, it kind of appeals more to a kid, I suppose. It is more campy watching it actually. I would say this one is a lot more darker, which you know it could fall into why I didn't like it quite as much overall as a kid. It's darker. It's got, you know, it's more emotionally stirring. It's got loads of different things that are yeah, just veer away a little bit from the first, and I think just the first one, you know, the more adventure kind of start to finish feel of it, and maybe the humour appealed more to me then. But yes, you know, I do actually prefer this film, and I'm going to be quite alone on that. Not a lot of people would say that. I know a few, and I've seen a few, and yeah, I think this one gets too much hate. It really is. Again, one of the most underrated films of all time. You know, I think it's not massively better than the first for me. I think, and there is a couple of things I do like more about the first. Generally, compared to the first, the things I like more about the first is the sense of wonder. It is just a bit more there. Maybe the flow of it, but you could say this one's got a great flow as well, and just the kind of first time of it all kind of thing, and the kind of charm, and I do like the campiness of it, and yes, but maybe the locations as well. I think the locations probably better than the first, but this one, everything else really I think is better, and I think it kind of develops the characters further. It has, for me, better set pieces. It has, yes, it has the CGI, which lets it down a bit, but the visuals overall, actually, and in terms of the way it's been put together and the design of it, and the cinematography, I think is actually better in this one, which is saying something. I think the music is better by Alan Silvestri, who is one of the greatest composers of all time. I think yeah, the music is better in this film. I love how the kid Alex in this film, and what happens with him, and the way it's kind of his family and it's kind of coming of age at times as well. He adds a lot to the film. You know, it's not a great performance. I will say that it's one of my cons. You know, it doesn't allow it to reach to a level. You know, but I think I really liked his character, and I did like him, his performance. You know, a lot of people say he's annoying. Kind of like you could say, and in many ways this is like the Temple of Doom, but you know, you could say it happens a lot with that. You know, a lot of people hate on Short Round. You know, in that film, I don't actually. I loved that character in Temple of Doom. I think he's a great character, and once again, this character does not, you know, annoy me in the way that a lot of people would get annoyed. I think he's a really good character, and I just loved all the comedy that worked, that kind of was in the film with him and Rick, him and Jonathan, and yeah, and as well that other character that was kind of you know, with the mummy quite a lot in the film, Imhotep, kind of like his bodyguard, you could say, and yeah, and I think I really like this character of Alex, and I loved his role in the film, and I think yes, it goes more emotional. Actually, it goes more darker, deeper, and it just, I think it's got even better action. I think it just it deepens the mythology more for me. You know, it goes further, and just from start to finish, I think it's a better film for me, and more enjoyable. You could say it's more of an adventure because it's more globetrotting. You know, it's not got that. I would say it's not got the quite the greatness of the the first in terms of the gradual building of the world, and just the way that the adventure kind of just slowly kind of just goes like that. This one's a bit more globetrotting. You know, it's a bit more. It is a bit more varied in the visuals and stuff and the locations, but you know, I think both are great, and for me, this one was better. You know, the opening kind of act is probably you know, it gets better and better really, the film, and that, you know, it's not. At that point, I was thinking, you know, it's not quite, maybe not quite on the level of the first, but it is doing things that I like more. You know, with the characters, you know, the music's definitely better, and you know, the story of this film is probably not quite as mysterious and everything like that. And I could understand if people say, you know, it's not quite as compelling, but it is more of an epic in scope, kind of what they do with this film, and the way that you know, the different armies come into play at the end, the last act, and kind of just what they were going for. I think is more interesting to me, and the way they deepen the mythology, and actually they develop the character of Rick, and add mystery to that. It's great as well. You know, I think this is one of the things that it does better. As well, the character of Oded, I think he's better in this film. Once again, of course, Evelyn gets captured quite early on, and most of the film is Rick, Jonathan, and Oded trying to basically rescue her. And when these guys are together, it's just so fun. It just works pretty much flawlessly in terms of that. The chemistry they have, and I just think as well what they were doing with the bracelet of Anubis, that was really great as well. I loved how Alex could see different locations and everything in front of him. That was great. And as well, I love how Evelyn, she's kind of got this. She sees flashbacks basically of her past life. They deepen that as well, and I loved the scenes there. I think it was great. It just brought it all together. Bigger scale once again. It's bigger scope, and it doesn't lose the personal touch and the kind of mirroring between the past and the present actually in this film. And the fight scenes in them flashbacks were amazing. I absolutely loved them. I think as well, the character of Alun, she was really good actually, but the performance by Patricia Velasquez wasn't great. I will con that. I didn't quite care for the performance as much as I should have, but the character luckily was written really well, and I loved how her actual role, the character's role in the film, and the way that it kind of as well focused a bit more on the romance of them, her and Imhotep, and there's a bit more. It was just a bit more human there as well, even more so, because in the first one she wasn't really in the film, to be honest, until the very end, and then even then, I'm not going to spoil it, but yeah, this one she has a bigger role, and it kind of just it is more compelling with Imhotep because he's got more character building there and kind of just more emotion, for his character as well. I think for the most part the humour actually works better in this film. It's not quite as it's not quite as campy as the first, which didn't bother me too much, but I think just in terms of from start to finish, does the humour work more consistently? I say yes for me, and it just doesn't quite go as over the top, and there's not actually for me. It's this and it's very hard to describe this what I feel about cheesiness and everything because many people call things cheesy, and I don't. There's a type of corniness, kind of different things, but where in the first one it got to a point at times, just at small moments, where it was a bit cringy, and it took away from that kind of believability and everything like that, and actually me caring for that romance. In this one, it's the type of corniness that I love still, but it's not the one where it becomes cringy and uncomfortable. And this one, basically, it's as well. It's a bit more earned, especially in the second half, with the kind of kissing and stuff. It is. I think if you count it up, as more kisses in this film, but it's not quite as cheesy, uncomfortable as in the first one. I think it just works better in this one, and it is at times cheesy. And I love a lot of cheesy films, or corny, whatever. But in this one, it's just doesn't go that far enough to kind of make me cringe or anything, and it wasn't, because in the first one, there is points where it does just go a bit too far and stuff, and it just takes away from that kind of personal feel to it, and me actually caring for the romance, only a small moment, as I say, and generally I do love, the kind of corny things in films where a lot of people just don't like, and they completely write off films for that. I kind of love that a lot of the time, but there is times where, as I say, in the first one, it does get a bit too far. In this one, there's maybe a couple of bits early on, but for the rest of the film, I think it doesn't do that, and it doesn't feel like it's as forced really, and at times a bit uncomfortable. In this one as well, Rachel Weisz is actually better in this film. I feel, she's still not perfect, but the performance is just better, I think, as well. They were going for more of a darker kind of story with the character of Evelyn, and the tone is better, and she kind of isn't as silly of a character, and they kind of as well, halfway through the film, it's big things that happen that kind of it's just more emotional, and I feel the performance, obviously, I just think it's stronger, and I just think the character was better in this film. And as well, Brendan Fraser, he's not as over the top in this film. Again, things happen that force him to be take it more seriously, and as well, still having fun. Of course, it's still such a fun film. This is an absolutely thrilling film. The set pieces are amazing. It's still got its campy moments, which I love, but it's not. It's not over the top like some of the first one was, and I just think it kind of just works a lot better than the first one even does. And that film I loved. I think it's a great film. I believe I gave that 90%. This one is a higher score. Now, as well, I think that the storyline with Imhotep is probably just as good, if not better. So you've got kind of better villain as well in this film. I think it kind of, I felt for him more in this film due to what happened, and also just the performance. I think by Arnold Vosloo was actually even better than in the first. As I say, Patricia Velasquez is not great, but then you've not got the character of Benny, who was not great. The performance, but it didn't bother me too much. But basically, you've got a couple of characters in the first that aren't great, but in this one, most of them are actually all round better, and you've not really got anyone that's really annoying in this film. And I think as I say, the set pieces, they are stunning in this film. The action, the way it's been put together is stunning. The sword fights and all that kind of stuff. Wow, it's just amazing. It's so thrilling. The editing is just stunning, really. I think it's got better editing than the first, and just the cinematography as well is better. Just as this, I think this is all round a better directed film. And again, I'm going to really be alone on that. Tell me in the comments if you think that this is actually better than the first, because I will be surprised. But and I didn't actually quite think on this rewatch I would think that. I did love them both as a kid, but as I say, all round I did prefer the first for most of my childhood. And I just think, as I say, this is more emotionally driven. The characters are better in this film. They get better development. It's not quite got the sense of wonder and charm that the first one has in that particular way, and it's maybe not got quite as good locations. And I think the Jerry Goldsmith music in the first was wonderful, but Alan Silvestri does an even better score for this film. I think it's just epic. It's got the real sense of adventure in it as well, just like the Goldsmith one does. But even more so, I feel the adventure feel is here even more. It's just an amazing score, and whenever it comes on, it's just really amazing in the film. And I just think so. Overall, this film for me is actually a great film, and I'm going to be quite alone on that. But I do think that I think it's better than the first in a lot of ways. Overall, it's a better film for me, more enjoyable. Cared more about the characters even more, and I loved how Alex was in the film. He was great, a great addition. As well, you've got of course Ardif. He is even better in this film, and just more likable than he was in the first. And the way that they team up throughout the film, all the characters, adds so much charm and just enjoyment in there. And the camaraderie. It's got loads of great humour again in the film, but it's not got some of the flawed humour that the first had. A bit at times, just little imperfections in that. And as I say, there's not much kind of cringy moments as the first. And as I say, the first only has a few, but it did have them. And this one, there's not really too much that bothered me. And the romance was better. The kind of just the way that it had more of an emotional undercurrent to the film. The set pieces were better. The mythology was deepened. I loved that. The fact that it went further. With Imhotep, and then of course added the Scorpion King. Of course the CGI in that scene is not great. But I really liked the kind of army that they had at the end, the kind of battle there. Again, the CGI is not great on the kind of dog things, but the way that was put together was really great. The spectacle of it, and this film has got spectacle. But critics such as Roger Ebert have conned that, and they said it overtakes these characters. I don't feel that. I think that the characters are actually, as I say, even better in this one, and the kind of spectacle of it, the set pieces, yes, the kind of green screen that is quite prevalent in the film, does not get overtake the characters, the story, the kind of the heart of the film, and yeah, I just think this film is better in most ways. Some stuff I like about the first more, and it's more nostalgic to me, but I actually now I do prefer this one, and I think I'd have to give it a 92%, and that is that's a massively high score from me. Considering how panned this film is, really quite a lot at the time, and it's not a loved film. That is massively high. Again, it makes it to quite, doesn't make it too high, but it makes it onto my favourite films list, 500, and it is in front of the first, as I say, and yeah, I just think Stephen Sommers done a stunning job with directing this film. It just feels like it's got more energy as well, but it also is more controlled in its humour, its tone, and it goes darker, but it's not. It still has the kind of the charm and everything the first one has. Just basically doesn't have the cringy moments as well, and just really more interesting to me, and something that I cared about more. I enjoyed more. Certainly after the first act of the film, that's when it started to get to that point. And yeah, I just think overall, for me, The Mummy Returns is a better film than the first. Not massively better, and it is, as I say, it's not claimed, but for me, it is better, and I love this film. Really do love it. Stunning film, great film, and yeah, I just kind of just as good as I remember, if not better actually, than I was when I was a kid. As I say, I did mostly prefer the first, but now I think I prefer this one. So yeah, thanks for watching my review of The Mummy Returns, and yeah, we'll probably be doing Tomb of the Dragon Emperor fairly soon, and I'm not looking forward to that. I have never actually seen that all the way through, really. I just don't look forward to it. It doesn't look great. Of course, Rachel Weisz is not in the film, and it just does not look anywhere near as good. Arnold Vosloo is not in the film, and yeah, I've not heard great things about that, to be honest. That is not acclaimed at all. Pretty hated that one. So yeah, we'll be reviewing that though at some point, and of course some of the other mummy films that have been made, I'll be reviewing them. Try and review most of them, and then maybe do a ranking of all the mummy films that I've seen, from worst to best. But yeah, as it stands, Mummy Returns, as I say, love the film, highly recommend maybe rewatching it, and yeah, I think it's better than the first in pretty much every way. Full of heart, great comedy in the film. The set pieces are stunning. At times, of course, the CGI, and just some of the, just in general, the effects don't quite work. And there is some moments, where some of the performances, especially Patricia Velasquez, does let the film down. And it's not a masterpiece. Doesn't quite elevate to anything like that. But 92%, absolutely love this film. So thanks for watching my review.